Hello and welcome everyone to the first episode of Reconsider this AoE2, where we challenge the common perception of units and how they stack up in beginner to intermediate level online games. I am TurkishDev myself, and I have my good old friend here,
MysticBeing, of course. And unlike what you've been presented in the past, we'll be giving you a different perspective on underused and underrated units that should really be put into use in appropriate situations.
Right. Now that the script is out of the way, we can actually dive into the episode. Today we hope to be talking about infantry. Specifically, what I want to really excel in this episode is champions in general, militia-line in general.
For many, many reasons. In late game, because generally in intermediate level play,
they're almost never seen.
They're almost never seen. Especially online games, I rarely see players go for infantry.
Never. And
as
they're just
their base of their
they're just
army.
Very, underrated.
Yeah.
Their potential is very underestimated because of their low gold cost.
Their low gold cost in the Imperial Age, especially, that's when intermediate level players usually do most of their fighting.
Right.
And so their cost in food will not be that big of a problem, because generally you're going to have an excess of food, maybe 2,000, 5,000 food, depending on what civ or what you're going into. So really the food is not a big issue. It's the gold for most units in Imperial Age. It's the sustainability of yourself to keep producing such a good unit. The champion. It's a champion, of course.
And the thing I really like about the champion in general is that, if you're going for knights, you got an easy counter halberdier. If you're going for archers, you got an easy counter skirmisher. But if you're going for infantry, well, you might say you got the onager. Archers are a considerable, counter. You got all this stuff. Like, what are you talking about? They've got so many counters. But
hand cannoneers, especially.
Hand cannoneers, especially.
But what do all those things cost? A
ton of gold. And that is kind of what I want to bring up, because the majority of units that you will use to counter infantry actually are very gold intensive, that you'll not be losing that much. If you can outproduce your opponent, you actually become way, way better in that exchange in general.
And especially if you think about it, what are those units? Like the hand cannoneer, it's not so favorable, but the hand cannoneer can be countered by skirmishers. If your army consists of course you're not going to have your army only of infantry. That would be dumb. You would have another type of unit in, or maybe two other. I would say two other, siege and a unit. So skirmishers can counter the long-range archers like Arbalest for civilizations. It can also counter hand cannoneers pretty well. And the champions, as long as they're not at a choke point, they can take down the siege quite fast, because they're a melee attacking.
The other thing about the champions is they're pretty good, especially like in later expansions edition with the tech bonus against the buildings. The infantry get a bonus against the buildings.
Yes, the arson tech. Yes.
Right. So with that, on top of everything, they're extremely unexpected in their power against. That's the thing I kind of want to say about archers. They're used in top level play, but if you're in intermediate or beginner level play, and you don't have something like siege out to carry anything, you can use infantry still. They're very, very good at taking out buildings. How devastating it can be just to take out a few of the guy's buildings where he starts freaking out, maybe calls GG, And another thing that I wanted to point out, as Mystic was just talking about, how the unit composition is very important, because as he said, you're not going to be using just infantry. Say if you're the Britons, for example, you might have longbows. One very, very bad mistake that I see, even in Black Forest maps, by a lot of Briton players that I see, is they do mass longbows, and there's nothing in front of the longbows. I'm not saying longbows are a bad unit, but I feel like they're just not used because there's no meat shield in front of them. They can be like a passive thing working in the back that does the damage while the actual fighting goes.
But that onager sniping, you gotta counter that.
Yeah, that I have to give it to them for that. But I mean, in general, what I see is mass longbows. Okay, yeah, onager sniping, pretty neat, especially in choke points. They can't get to them. Good point. But if you have an open area, then you can easily counter them. And the other thing is, if you have champions that are in the front, then they're like a passive, like, poison effect. Like, have that in those RPG type of games, like the passive poison effect that just kind of runs in the background slowly. helps you out. That's what I feel like it should be. And if you just throw in a few champions in the front, I think it's an awesome combo.
Yeah, that's very specific to the Britons. If you're playing as the Britons, you should definitely make champions. That's one unit that you should be making every game. You should have maybe longbows and arbalest, depending on how you want to go.
How you want to go, right?
Exactly. But you should definitely have champions because they perfectly help your army out in countering the other units, and they act as essentially a very strong meat shield.
Right. Just a little bit on the Britons. I don't know why we were focusing so much on the Britons, but they also,
since they're not a
since they're not a infantry civilization.
But this is actually a good point because you can see that the Britons are classified as a
archer civilization.
Foot archer
civilization.
You gotta remember that. And
Mayans are not foot archer, but
not.
Britons are. Even though they got no cavalry.
Weird AoE2 logic. But if you look at their tech tree, they have all of the infantry upgrades.
Yeah, they have all of the infantry
champion.
upgrades.
They may not have specific bonuses to infantry, other than their sheep gathering bonus for the food. But really, it shows that even though it may be classified as an archer civilization, you can still go for infantry. It's a viable option. And they get halberdiers too, so...
That's the main thing about infantry. I mean, a lot of civilizations get quite decent infantry. And the upgrades to the line is... a lot of people are thinking, like, should I be doing the upgrades or not? But if you think about it, the only upgrade that costs quite a bit is just the two-hand swordsman to the champion line upgrade. Yeah. But other than that, it's actually very little cost. I mean, you can make that sacrifice, and the best time to be using champions, and I can't emphasize this enough, is against skirmishers and against halberdiers, where they're trying to give you so much trash, and you try to counter it with something like that's of your own unique unit or of your own gold intensive unit.
Yeah.
Where you can just throw in like 20 champions and they would take away 100 halberdier easily.
Well, we gotta try that, but...
We would have to try that.
But also, if you think about it, there's not really any trash units that can counter champions very well.
Nope.
Hussar, not really. Actually quite poorly, I believe.
Yes.
And halberdier, you can maybe make like 5 of them and maybe they'll take down 1 champion, maybe. But yeah, there's no cheap trash unit that can... Now we're talking about the original game, so
right,
there might be in the newer expansions.
Right. Like if you're thinking about, say, archers, let's just take the arbalest or any of the archer line in general. They cost 45 gold. And having said that, if you have, say, 15 maybe? Group of 15.
Yeah, 15.
15. So 675 gold right there. And then let's have
15 champions.
15 champions.
Well, that's 15 times 20. So that should be much less because that's already more than half the cost of the archers. And I bet you that the archers could... the infantry could definitely take out the champions. Now there are specific... Now, of course, talking about infantry, we must talk about the specific Sieve bonuses because a lot of Sieves, they get very specific bonuses to infantry and they're classified as infantry civilizations. Some ranging from higher pierce armor as the Mayans, I believe.
Yes.
Or very cheap units like the Huskarl. Maybe a bit less in armor upgrades or attack upgrades, but their cheaper units help the infantry. And also the Aztecs. That's another unit, civilization that gets really good infantry. And not only the archer, the champion and the halberdier, no, they get pikemen. They also get, yes, I can't.
You were about to say halberdier.
Yeah, I can't say that. They also get the eagle warrior and their unique unit, which counters infantry, their jaguar warrior.
I also just want to really quickly go over the main reasons infantry isn't seen so much in higher level play. I mean, we're kind of talking really good about infantry, but as you get higher and higher level play, I mean, micromanagement starts to get bigger and bigger of a deal, where, I mean, you don't leave your army on... That's another good thing about infantry. You can be attacking a base, and you don't have to worry too much about XYZ factor. But if you're with archers, for example, then they can easily be countered by, say,
castle, or anything else.
Like that.
While infantry mostly will tank it. And
Right.
Yeah.
So like under TC fire, for example, you have to worry so much. Whereas if you have infantry, you don't have to chicken out. You can just straight and dive.
No
into
chickening
TC.
out.
Chickening out is a term that we will be using a little bit more often than you might expect in the
And we would like to call it strategically retreating. Just
tactical retreat.
tactical retreat, just to make that clear. Anyway, moving on.
That's
Now-
what that means if you ever hear chickening out in the future. So certain civilizations that get specific infantry bonuses, as Mystic kind of touched over. One of my favorite civilizations being the Goths.
Oh yes, definitely the Goths. Now I fell in love with the Goths earlier because of their extremely cheap infantry. I believe it's
In the HD,
25%.
starting
less.
from feudal age.
Starting from feudal age. That is pretty insane. If you think about it, this is for HT or for Conquerors?
I believe it's original Conquerors. Yep.
Okay, so then in Conquerors, it's starting.
I don't
from
think it.
25
Yeah, I don't
no,
believe
it
it
changed.
I don't
to
think so. Do you want me to
less.
double check?
That's okay, but definitely the infantry for the Goths, they can just swarm it. It's just insane.
Right.
And the barracks being.
I stand corrected. It did change 35% in feudal age
Wow.
in expansions edition. So
Actually, if you have expansions, it's even better.
wow.
I believed it. I thought it was going to be a negative 10% in feudal, negative 20 in
That's what
castle.
I thought it was. Like
That would make
kind of
sense.
like how the Mayans had it, right?
So another reason why you should go Goths, guys. Just throwing
Sorry,
it out
not
there.
my bad.
Shameless advertising for the Goths.
Yeah, shameless advertising for the Goths. No. The reason I'm saying the Goths in general is because I mean I'm a pretty big infantry fan in general, but if you're gonna be rushing with infantry in general, I feel like to carry it to late game is also a very good option. I mean feudal rush obviously that's when you're gonna be making
Yes.
the majority of your infantry. But
And the fact that you can make a barracks before any other military building is pretty important, and also that the infantry is not created extremely slow like a knight line.
right.
That is just horrible, just waiting for those knights to come out. Infantry is created quite a bit faster.
And it's also one of the most underestimated units, so it's very likely that the opponent won't have anything to counter it right away.
Exactly.
And I mean, if you're the Goths, they might suspect that you're going for infantry, but I'm saying as another civilization, I thought I'd just throw it in there.
Yeah, and I mean, most rushes, professionally done, they're generally archer rushes because they can micromanage very well. They know how to take care of their economy back home.
In professional level, yeah.
Yeah, professional level. In lower level, generally I see more knight rushes. So
Yeah.
that's also in castle. That's castle age, meaning there's whole feudal age option. You have all this time in feudal age to take advantage of your infantry because they're probably investing in food and gold for their knights. And if they're doing that, then they're not going to have any counters to your units. Think about it. Archers cost wood and gold. If you're investing so heavily into food, then you're going to have less wood. That would just make more sense. So it's going to be harder to put up a archer range and start producing crossbows or archers to counter your infantry, like your
Right.
man-at-arms. So you can really catch someone unsuspected. I know this happened to me quite a few times, where the man-at-arms and the longswordsman, because it generally occurs that way. It goes, the enemy's attacking with his man-at-arms, and you slowly and very sadly see them turn into longswordsmen. And I was really surprised at how fast they can take down gates and buildings, and
Even
quite
TCs.
quite a few times, I've almost lost the game because I did not expect such a strong attack from the infantry playing civilization. I was expecting personally a Imperial Age attack because that's generally more intermediate players. So it can really catch the enemy off guard when you're
Right.
going for infantry. And it can be hard to counter, really. It can.
The other thing about the Night Rush, I just wanted to point out. I mean, all it takes is for a barracks to make a bunch of spearmen and you're over it. Whereas, in order to counter infantry, you need.
Man.
I'm not gonna go ahead and say that archers are a counter for infantry hardcore because
It depends.
you need a good amount massed in order
Yeah.
to counter infantry. And I'm gonna throw the argument that if you have a good amount of infantry, they're not gonna be able to produce archers as fast.
Yeah, and they're much more expensive.
And also, you can just take down their archery range if you got a good amount of infantry.
Exactly. And especially if you're this is such a insane counter, the Goths, they're Huskarls, one of the units that I wrote off quite a few years ago.
Yeah.
And I realized, wow, they can definitely counter archers. So that's just one unique unit. Now, another civilizations, three civilizations that get a special unit, the Eagle Warrior, for the Mayans, the Incas, and the Aztecs, yes. So that unit is definitely another counter. It's more like the Huskarl with higher pierce armor, less melee attack and melee armor, and they're a bit more expensive, of course, and you can only access them in the Conqueror's expansion, in Castle Age.
Yep.
Now, with the expansions, you can access them in the Feudal Age, but I don't believe they're very good. They might be the original Castle Age unit.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
If that's so, then you can start producing Castle Age units, essentially, if you're going from Conquerors to expansions in the Feudal Age. That's a
But you have to
big
save up
advantage.
a 200 food, 200 gold in order to advance, upgrade to the Eagle Warrior itself.
Well, actually, the Eagle Warrior is a bit opposite, pretty much an opposite of the infantry, the
Right.
regular infantry line. It costs 50 gold and 20 food, as opposed to 60 food and 20 gold, and they are more archer counter. They have higher pierce. The infantry has higher melee, and the Eagle Warrior is a faster, more line of sight unit.
Certainly.
Yes.
In general, I mean, raiding with eagles is just completely. I don't know. Whenever I see eagles raiding my base, I completely freak out because
Yeah.
a lot of times I would garrison my units as a
that
counter,
kind of-
and that doesn't work. And I've clearly exhausted all my options if Eagle Warriors are raiding my base. The cool thing about countering Eagle Warriors is typically this is why you need to have some type of not go for just one specific unit.
Exactly.
Because you can just try to if you have to have a critical mass of champions or something, some other. That's the other thing. If you're not researching the champion line, if you're not researching any of the
It'll
militia
take
line,
too long.
It'll take too long to even make a few to counter the Eagle Warriors. That you're kind of like, I've got archers, but what is that gonna do? The Eagles are fast enough to get to your archers and take them down before you can do
Yes.
anything. So it's may as well call GG at that point.
Well, guys, if you go to my channel, you'll see why not to go GG, but that's something later on.
Something later on. So I think we talked mainly about. We went a little bit into.
Unique units. Now, of course, there are many more, like the Jaguar Warrior, and the new civilizations.
I'm not too familiar with the new
Yes.
civilizations. I mean,
I believe the
hardcore conqueror
Yeah.
player.
Shotel Warriors, I believe. I believe that's an infantry unit. Pretty
Yeah.
insane attack versus buildings. Like a glass cannon, pretty much. But other than that, I don't really know about the new. I'm probably forgetting one of those other conqueror civilizations that have infantry.
Right.
Probably.
Likely.
Definitely.
Like I can't correct you because
There must be more.
I'm pretty sure.
It's not on the top of my head. But anyway,
Right, so to move it on, I just want to talk a little bit about the practical use of infantry in early ages, such as Dark Age or Feudal Age, and why it's not seen so much in pro level play, because we did talk a lot about why infantry is so good, and etc. etc. I don't know if it convinced you. I don't know.
hopefully we did. Hopefully you go on and you're like, yep, I'm going to play as infantry. I really want to go as...
I mean, I would love to just show some. Maybe we can add some gameplay in the back of this that just shows a bit of
definitely. We can even play a game. Maybe next. We play
Yeah,
a game.
maybe we could
Just
show
throw a
demonstrating.
game right now. Kidding.
Right. I mean, the reason that typically people don't go for infantry is they won't take the risk of like committing that much into the rush early on because it slows down their castle age advance time, and I mean that makes a lot of sense. So that's one thing to really consider. Like if you're gonna go hardcore infantry, that is 60 food. That's worth more. That's like 10 food more than the cost of a villager, pretty much. Whereas if you're working for archers, whereas if you're making archers, then it's a lot easier to keep making archers, have that stable food production in the back, and not get carried away with making too much infantry, whereas you slow down the castle age advancement time. But typically the reason I like infantry is just because in the late game they are extremely cheap. I mean, I run out of gold so easily. Mystic trades a lot. I typically
Generally 10,000 trade at the end of the game. Pretty insane because generally
Mystic is a big trader.
definitely.
Myself though, I don't know why I don't trade so much.
We'll go for 1,000 for you, you know.
Right. So I always like to have some type of unit that I can,
Mass produce,
and typically it's trash. Normally it's just skirms or halbs or hussars, something like that. But something that you should also consider to add to that type group of units that you can mass and not worry about losing so much gold and preserving is the champion line itself, because of how devastating it can be. I mean, if you just have 100 champions, that's just 2,000 gold right there. Not too much that you have to worry about.
Yeah.
As long as late game you have enough farms to, if you've boomed or something like that, you have enough farms to keep that production up.
Yeah, I would argue that. I mean, I haven't played some of the civs in a while.
Yeah.
But I would argue that it's one of the cheapest gold using unit.
Yeah.
Am I correct?
I believe so, especially if you're the Goths with the 13 gold. But no, there is a civilization in the expansions that their infantry unit from the unique unit costs like 5 gold or something like that, wasn't there? And it has like 17 attack.
Oh, well, the Magyar Hussar, but that's
not
Hussar,
infantry.
but that's not infantry. So definitely
I forget.
It is one of the cheapest units in the game.
Yeah, don't test me on the expansions, because
Yeah. Lag. That's what we can tell you about the expansions. Lots of lag. So I think we've covered most of the topics. Is there anything that you'd like to add? Because
we don't want to make this first episode too long, I think.
yeah, definitely.
And not too boring. This has been mainly on the champion, but I'm not gonna say. We didn't talk too much about the halberdier. I mean, it's an awesome unit as well. You should really try to use it.
Yeah, of course, because it's a hard counter to
Hard counter.
knights and stuff.
And one thing you typically want to do is mix in halberdiers with champions. That's a great combination. Right, so their cost we covered, why it's so good in terms of low cost in gold in the later time, why it's sometimes can be debatable to go for them in the earlier times.
And how you can mass produce them.
How you can mass produce them very easily, especially if you're the Goths and your barracks are like on heroin. Civilizations we talked about, which civilizations get it. Now, unless you're the Persians, you got pretty good infantry. So if
don't
you're the
go
Persians,
don't pick the Persians for infantry.
Yeah, whatever you do, just don't pick the Persians. But you can pick the. I'm not saying there's anything bad with the Persians. Just if you're gonna go for infantry, go for anything but the Persians.
Yeah, I wouldn't even consider putting infantry, like going for infantry as the Persians. Like
it's
even
like not applicable at all.
Yeah.
Anyway, so that has been it.
Thank
for
you
this
guys
episode.
for
Thank
watching.
you so much for watching.
Or listening, depends.
Yeah,
Depends
I
on
mean,
how it
I
goes.
think the main way that I would look at this podcast in general is just you can have this in the background. You don't have to like focus on the screen
Yes,
so
definitely.
much. That's
And
the way I would.
I think our goal really is to show the community that, especially the lower, because of course we're intermediate players, we're not going to have the knowledge of the higher rated players.
Right.
But those are the people who essentially talk the most. And
Yes.
their tactics are not going to really affect most of the lower rated players, because technically we're just not fast
Yeah,
enough.
because there's a difference in their advantage is that they can micromanage things so much better than we can do.
And that makes a huge difference.
Huge difference. So we're not making the argument that infantry is better than archers, no question, or that archers are better than infantry, no question. We're just saying that we haven't really seen infantry so much, and that's what this podcast is here to talk about.
It's really to reconsider using this
exactly unit. That's what the spirit of this is. It's just to reconsider using underused units that can be useful in certain situations. And I think in the next episode, will we be talking about the Hussar possibly?
Probably a Hussar. You should tune in to check that out.
Tune in to check that out, hopefully.
Definitely that's going to be one lit conversation there.
Alright, thank you for watching. You can also make sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel, and you can check out Mystic's channel. My channel link will be also in the description below. And have a great day. Peace out.